Hi, I'm Lippy.
And I'm Grumpy. Together we're Lippy and Grumpy do podcasting.
In this episode, when scientists play jokes, making electricity from rubbish, and a long Lippy top tip without an actual tip.
Now, Lippy.
Hello.
We got a bit of feedback from last week's topics.
Yes.
And a bit of non-feedback, actually.
Okay.
I have not heard from Have I Got News For You about the counting fish and whether, in fact, that was an April Fool's joke or not. I didn't actually expect one. And I didn't mention anything in last Friday's programme. So I think it probably was, but...
They're not going to admit that.
No, possibly not. Anyway, one of the comments that I realised I'd said when I was editing last week's was, do scientists play April Fool's jokes? Now, it turns out that scientists do, in fact, play April Fool's jokes.
Yes.
And I've got two examples. One is from CERN, which is one of my favourite places, also known as the Collider, which is a massive piece of engineering under Switzerland and France that I have visited on one occasion. And we've certainly driven past when we've been skiing. And I think there's a service area where you can view where it is. You obviously can't see it from there.
Yeah.
And I think I've bored
It's underground
with stories of that, yeah. So anyway, the people at CERN, on the 1st of April 2015, announced that an invisible force permeates the universe, binding the galaxy together. So sounds like the force that's referred to in Star Wars films.
Oh.
So they confirmed it did exist. And it was a CERN theorist, Ben Kenobi. So the alarm bells will start to ring at this point.
Yeah.
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. It is the Force.
I wonder how many people fell for that.
Interesting. Obviously, a fan of Star Wars would see straight through it. But if it was a scientist, then maybe not, if they don't watch Star Wars or such trivia.
I've watched Star Wars, but I still don't think I'd get that.
No, possibly not. But mention of the Force does.
The Ben Kenobi as well.
Excellent. So good for CERN there. And the other one was a little bit earlier than that, was in 1976. And this is Patrick Moore, one of my favourite astronomers and people in general.
Astronomer is someone that looks at the sky.
Yes, not an astrologer. Those are two very different things.
Oh. What's an astrologer?
Well, they look at stars and horoscopes.
Oh, that's what I thought it was.
No, very different. And if you want to upset somebody with a degree in astrophysics, refer to it as astrology. That really get quite irate at that. I've got a friend of mine and I wind him up on a regular basis about that. Anyway, so Patrick Moore announced the approach of a once-in-a-lifetime astronomical event. At 9:47 a.m, Moore said the planet Pluto would pass directly behind Jupiter, and at that moment their gravitational alignment would counteract and thus lessen the pull of Earth's gravity. Moore told his listeners that if they jumped in the air at the exact moment of the planetary alignment, they would experience a strange floating sensation. So at 9:48, 1 minute after the alleged alignment, callers flooded the lines of BBC Two with stories of their brief buoyant experiences. Well done, sir.
Yes.
And we had a message from the Screaming Tomato down under, and he agrees with me of the use of the phrase end off. Oh, heck, that gets my hackles up, was his response.
That was actually used this weekend. That phrase.
What, end of?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Where?
In a conversation with yourself.
Really? When?
Yes. On Sunday.
Oh, I missed that.
You definitely didn't, because you mentioned it, and then you said, you definitely haven't been listening to our podcast.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can't remember what I have for breakfast. So Sundays. No chance, I'm afraid. Absolutely none. But Screaming Tomato makes a comment about the Brummie accent. And it reminds me of a story of a friend of mine who was filming in France with a cameraman from Birmingham with a very strong, he was from Dudley actually, a very strong accent. And they were in this French village, and typically early evening, nobody's about, everything looks shut up.
Yeah.
And these two people walk past, and neither of these guys speak French at all. So, and you're in, the middle of nowhere, so you don't expect them to speak English. So this chap steps up to this couple, rubs his stomach, and just in this massive Birmingham accent goes, "Grub, grub." And they looked at him a bit blankly to begin with, and then pointed down the road to a restaurant. So it does work. It is the hand actions. And you might remember Minimat from a while back, and one of the Italian job people, and he's responded to my pet peeve on wonky number plates. Now, Minimat works for BMW Mini, and so he knows a thing or two about this. So he says wonky number plates is a real thing. Technicians often use a template old plate for their drill holes, as the holes are pre-drilled in most of our new cars. However, if the template is wonky, that wonk gets replicated many, many times. If we spot it, we try and correct it, as it winds me up too. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. And then Disney Joe, his partner, replied with, "On my car," for example, with a slightly unhappy face. So clearly it's not just Teslas. There are a few other brands as well. So thank you, everybody that got in touch. That does make our week.
It does, yes.
We get a bit of feedback. Oh, one other thing the Screaming Tomato talked about, and I'm going to get this wrong, is a
I wouldn't do that.
Called kniffiti, which I think might be an Australian term. It's also known as yarn bombing, and it's sort of a graffiti using wool. It's the only way I could describe it. And it gets wrapped around trees and bollards and things like that. And we do have a little bit of something in the village, a little bit like that, where there's a tree where pom-poms are hung from, which looks really nice. It's a very nice thing, but this seems to go a little bit further in terms of covering the tree in knitted items. Goodness only knows how you found that, Screaming Tomato, and what were you looking for at the time. But it is a very interesting thing, and if you look on Wikipedia, there's all sorts of various instances with almost like doilies on top of post boxes, for example.
Interesting.
So, yes, very different. Very different tool, very colourful. So we're into week 3, are we now, of your new job?
Yes, week 3. I feel like I kind of know what I do a bit more. I don't really know what I do, to be perfectly honest. Like, it's a very broad job description, and I help out in lots of different areas, which means I don't necessarily have like a plan every day of what I need to do. It just kind of comes in drips and drabs.
Yeah.
But we are moving offices, and that's like a big project that I'm working on. So I had a lot of that to do today, which was like nice to actually just sit down and crack on with some work. One of which, though, is I need to buy some more TVs. How exciting is that? Gosh. Yeah, so I spent about an hour scrolling the internet trying to find a good TV.
So what do they use the TVs for?
In the meeting rooms.
Okay, so do you have to be able to cast something there, or? Yeah,
so there's this magical thing called ClickShare.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's other devices that do the same thing, but ClickShare I've used before, and it is the easiest thing to use in the world. You literally, it's a little like black box on a USB, and I don't know where the other USB goes because I've never actually set one up. I've just used it. I assume it goes in the back of a TV, and then you just plug it into your laptop, click the button, and everything on your screen is on the big screen.
Very good.
It's super easy to use, and you don't have to sign on to anything when you're like on your laptop. You literally just plug it in and click, and it goes.
So presumably you don't have to drag an HDMI cable across the office to get, which is the other approach.
Yeah, so it's just you sit wherever you are, plug it in, click, and you're on.
Very good. Company I'm working for invested quite heavily in Zoom rooms, and they'll have a TV screen with a Zoom box, and that's somehow connected. And then there's some way of sharing it. It's 2 years since I've been in the office, so the method of doing that is a bit hazy, to be honest. But that always worked quite well. But that was a major investment in equipment. Yeah. I mean, those Zoom boxes are not cheap.
No. We have one in our larger office, and I don't think we'll be getting them for the smaller ones because they are for the whole kit, for like the camera, the microphone, and they're like 360 cameras so that everyone can be seen. I think they're at just over $1,000.
Well, it sounds quite cheap, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a bit more.
That one is for a freestanding camera, not a camera attached to a...
Okay. And the other thing we've used before is Chromecast, which is a consumer product. But I found that doesn't work brilliantly well. I did it in the office at Cheltenham and it was a bit flaky.
Interesting.
Half the meeting's gone by the time you've managed to connect to it. Connected to the correct one, because you're actually connecting one in another meeting and they're going, why are we seeing this on our screen? All fun and games. Good. Well, I'm sure the role will open up as time goes on. You'll end up with a lot more in terms of responsibilities and odd jobs that you pick up, and then you'll try and shake and won't be able to. So.
Like watering the plants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is one I actually quite enjoy.
And they are real plants. They're not.
Oh yeah, they are real plants.
Artificial ones.
You joke. I've seen someone water a fake Christmas tree before.
That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me the slightest. Is it a family member?
It wasn't. It wasn't. No, it was when I worked at a golf club.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
One of the helpers there was told he needed to water the trees to make sure they stayed alive, and he assumed that meant the fake one as well. It was great when I saw it, to be honest. It really made my day.
Now, talking of days, we had a cracking day on Friday, which was Good Friday of last
week. We did.
Well, I had a doubly cracking day because in the evening I watched The Long Good Friday, which is one of my favourite gangster films.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's from the 80s. It's a very good film, but it's quite dated in many ways.
Yeah.
And so in the morning, off topic, in the morning we had the Easter egg hunt at the Crabbie Showground, which was brilliant. I mean, the weather was perfect. It was absolutely bang on. I
was one of few that rocked up at 8:30 in shorts and a t-shirt and covered in sun cream. I feel like I was judged a bit when I first turned up. Some people did think I had gone a bit over the top because it was quite cold still.
It was a bit chilly, and again, it's 3 years since we've run that event. Previously, the woodland where we hide the eggs is quite sheltered.
Yes.
And it's quite a bit cooler in there than the rest of the showground. However, they've been coppicing the area and it is a lot more open than it was.
Yeah.
It was a lot warmer. So my choice of clothing in terms of jeans was a very, very poor idea. I don't know how many people attended. We've not had a wash-up meeting. But I can't remember that many coming, and over in the last 3 years we've had more. No, it didn't seem to stop. We've had more houses built, so there is opportunity for more people. And I didn't recognise anybody either, which is interesting. There's a limit of 10. Oh yeah, but there's people you personally know, whereas you tend to get a lines of it. You'll spot individuals that always turn up,
always come, yeah.
But their kids must be older than 10 now, so it's another set coming along. But it was good to see so many people. Although I have to say, I did feel a bit overwhelmed to begin with all of these people just rushing into the woods. I hid behind my little notice with arrows on it and say which age group to go, and it took a couple of minutes to die down. Yeah, absolutely. Now going back to the Long Good Friday, there's a scene towards the end where they go into the Savoy Hotel in London, and it's the only road that I know of, and I think there are others in the UK, but it's the only road where you actually drive on the right-hand side. You don't drive on the left.
Do you?
You do indeed. Now, it is private land, so you can do what you like, basically. But there is a reason for this, and there is a theatre, the Savoy Theatre, is on the right-hand side of the road as you come in. So the taxi drivers could come in, drop somebody off at the theatre, and then continue to the hotel, which is at the end of the short road, and pick another fare up without having to go back round again. So that makes sense.
That does make sense.
The roundabout at the end defines the turning circle for a London cab.
So it's the exact size of the turning.
Yes. So it's you had to have a turning circle of 25 foot to get a licence for a London cab.
Yeah.
And that's based on the roundabout outside the Savoy Hotel.
Oh, interesting.
Which is quite interesting, I thought. But it was odd that they were coming along the wrong side of the road, although the right side or the left side of the road. And there was one shot from the hotel where you clearly see the taxi coming in on the out lane. It says out very clearly on the lane. So it's quite obvious it's the wrong way around. Why they chose to do that, I don't know.
That's very confusing.
It is very confusing. But it makes sense. It does absolutely make sense. But yes, if you're watching Long Good Friday, towards the end, you'll spot the presumably deliberate error, but for reasons unknown. Now, I've got a slightly controversial article here.
Ooh.
Slightly controversial. I was discussing this with a friend of mine last week who, up until Wednesday of last week, was very much into his electric cars. But he's sold his Nissan Leaf and bought a Porsche Boxster instead. I think on the basis that he doesn't do very many miles.
Okay.
As none of us are doing at the moment. So,
so he's gone from one extreme to the complete other.
Yes, absolutely. And
love it.
No justification in that decision whatsoever.
Porsche Boxsters are cute though. They're a nice car.
Very nice car. It's a slightly limited edition. I think it's the R60. I don't know much about Porsche Boxsters apart from they are very, very good. And one time he had a Boxster, a 98 Boxster and a 911, and I would say actually the Boxster was the better of the two, mostly because it didn't smell of vomit. Somebody had been spectacularly sick in this car before he bought it.
Not
and
okay.
It was horrible, and of course, there's lots of bacteria and something like that. So getting rid of the smell is actually quite
hard.
difficult. Yeah. Not only that, when he bought the car, I took him over to pick it up, and the lady that was selling it said, "I didn't like the number plate, so I changed it." I went, "Oh, okay." She said, "No, the number plates on the car aren't the right ones." Sorry, what do you mean? That you put a personal plate? Oh no, I just put a different number on there.
So it's not registered to the car?
No. I think there was one letter difference.
Oh my God.
How on earth have you got away with that? So I told my mate who's would absolutely hate that sort of thing.
Yeah.
He just went, I would have never have spotted that in a million years.
No.
Presumably unless you go for an MOT and then they go, well, hang on a minute, you got the wrong number plates on there. But
yeah, she can't have had it long.
No, I don't know. Anyway, I digress somewhat from the original subject, which is burning rubbish.
Burning rubbish.
This is an article about Sweden, and there's two issues here. So one is if lots of stuff's going to landfill, then landfill fills up pretty quickly, and apparently the amount that generally as a world we're throwing away into landfill is unsustainable. Can't dig more holes to bury it. So what Sweden have been doing for a while is burning it and then using that heat to generate electricity. It is controversial because you're basically creating more CO2 from burning it. On the plus side, you are creating energy rather than just burying it and let it produce whatever it produces.
Yeah.
And I worked for Hewlett Packard in Bracknell for a while, and the business park that's built on is old landfill, and they've got these little chimneys in various spots over there which let out the methane from underneath, which is really quite worrying. Yeah, it does feel worse somehow.
Then a bit of CO2. Like I know CO2 is not good for the environment necessarily, but... So
to give some figures for Sweden, they started expanding this in the 1970s, so they've obviously been at it for a while, and they have 34 waste-to-energy plants, and that supplies nearly 1.5 million households with heat and 780,000 households with electricity.
I feel like in what we're going through at the moment, that would be perfect.
Yes, it's a way of replacing gas and oil from certain countries that
are not very nice.
Behaving themselves.
Who are being mean.
Put it mildly, yeah. So again, on the e-fuel topic, so Porsche have invested another £57 million in a plant in Chile to create synthetic fuels. So we've covered that a few times. Obviously, if they're pumping that much money into it, then it's a bit of a goer, as they say.
How'd you get in? I'll buy some stocks.
You got a fair couple of million knocking around, I suppose.
In my back pocket.
So in November 2020, Porsche said the current cost of the synthetic fuel was £7.60 a litre. But they're aiming to get it below £1.50 a litre, which is certainly cheaper than it is here today.
However, our petrol has gone down.
Well, I read something earlier saying that there's suddenly a glut of oil.
What's a glut of oil?
Well, there's more sellers than buyers again. So I suspect people have gone, whoa, that's expensive. I'm not filling the car up to go on a joyride. And
because ours has gone down to 158, which is still pretty high, but
yeah, it is pretty high. Ours is 161, so it's not a million miles away.
But the last couple of days, it keeps going down.
Well, presumably that's they've got a good turnover of fuel in there. And the problem we have here is that they pay the spot rate at the point of delivery because they don't have the same customers as a bigger station.
Yeah, it was a Tesco garage.
Yes, so they'll have quite a big throughput, I would imagine. And they'll be pushing prices down to get people in the supermarket as well, which they tend to do. So it can be a lost leader. But if we can get some synthetic fuel, that would be very good. So thank you, Porsche. Keep going. Don't stop.
I'm sure you've got another 57 million somewhere else you can put in.
I'm sure they have. Now, there was a very interesting article in The Guardian, and I put in the notes, needs careful reading, which I haven't done. So it's going to be very much an overview.
Interesting.
But it's an interesting point, and unconsciously I'd seen this before. And this seems to be an internet thing. So why do we compare events that are not comparable? So they take the example of the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident and the war in Ukraine, which are obviously at different ends of the spectrum. But somehow they get linked together as if it's comparing apples with apples, which it's just not. And you do see this quite a bit, and it can be an excuse for all sorts of behaviour that's happened in the past. And you say, but this is going on now, which is more important, or it's more now. I'm not naming names here, but it's fairly obvious who I'm talking about. Disregard that. There's more important things to deal with. And I do just see it a lot. And it's sort of a little bit, I think, confirmation bias as well. It's just adding to somebody's story. But it is an interesting article, and probably worth a careful read. So it's by Rachel Connolly in The Guardian, which is free to read. It's not behind a paywall. And no doubt we'll find some other examples over the next few weeks of that. I mean, some of them are quite ridiculous, to be honest. And you see them time and time again in the comments on the socials. And the problem is you spend more time defending why that was a really stupid thing to say and irrelevant than you do making a valid point.
100%.
So, not brilliant. It's interesting to give it a label. Now, when I was a child, I had an incident in a public toilet in Littlehampton where I got stuck in a cubicle.
I'm glad you said that quite quickly, because in my mind I was like, where is he going with this?
Yes. No, I got stuck. It was by the fun fair by a massive fish in Littlehampton. I would imagine it's no longer there. I think we got some photos of the fish, not the little lavatory.
Not the stuck toilet.
Ever since then, I have been slightly worried about getting stuck in the toilet. Unfortunately, a lady got stuck in a public toilet in Llandudno in Wales, and she had to pay 30 pence to get out.
What?
Yes, quite.
I'm not letting you out unless you pay me 30p.
Yes, so there was advice on the poster inside the toilet door which said, do not panic. So a little bit like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which allegedly had don't panic written on the cover. Yeah. So people are told to reassure the individual that everything is okay and instructed to press the unlock button. It goes on to say they may have to wait 15 minutes and insert another 30p for the door to release. Now, obviously, the lady concerned couldn't put the 30p in, so she had to phone her husband, who then came in and put the 30p in. So if you're on your own, you're going to be stuck.
You just have to wait for someone to come and use the loo.
Yeah, basically, and then have a very embarrassing conversation that...
Could you not climb over the top, I wonder?
Presumably not, or didn't want to do that. So apparently the local council has said we have closed the toilet temporarily while the manufacturer inspects and fixes the lock.
Well, it's obviously been going on for a while if there's an actual note there. They just haven't been bothered to do anything about it until it's been in the Daily Post.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious.
Yes. It really annoyed me, so I took to Facebook to rant, and now it's all over the internet. Well, I think your rant was very justified.
Yes, that's a valid rant.
Valid rant, and has ended up with the correct action by the council rather than just leaving it and letting people to get on with it. Now, another thing that bothers me slightly from time to time is robots, or our robots. And there's a couple of films I've watched where I've had a very uneasy feeling afterwards. It's not... I can't remember one of them where the robot was a young boy, and I didn't like it very much. And I see there's a Tesla bot. And, yes, apparently it's going to be ready next year. And this article says it's slightly terrifying. I think it's a lot terrifying. To be honest, it's faceless. It's a shape of a human, but it's faceless. That's
what gets me. Like, we've obviously got a robot Hoover.
Yes, that doesn't terrify me
because it doesn't look like a person.
No.
Why make it look like a person? It doesn't need to look like a person. It can just be a ball.
Well, it depends on what it's going to do. So this is 5'8" tall, has a carrying capacity of 45 pounds or 20 kilograms. And it would deadlift, whatever that is, 68 kilograms. I don't know what the difference is there. And it will walk at...
so it could carry your shopping?
5 miles an hour. It could carry your shopping. You could get it to get the shopping from the car into the house. It has 8 cameras to navigate it. This is the bit. A screen on its face will show useful info.
So it will talk to you. That's what it's saying. It will talk to you.
Well, it probably will. It has artificial intelligence tech already in use in Tesla vehicles, but what are we going to see on its face? Oh, that's terrifying.
That is creepy.
Yeah.
And then you think, how intelligent does this intelligence get? Like, I don't want it to get that intelligent. Like, I'm happy with our Hoover because I know our Hoover is actually stupid. If you watch it, like I did the other day, I was working from home and he was doing his little thing, and he goes around the edges first and then he goes in the middle. And where I was in the house, I was sat on a chair. So the chair wasn't in the position that he had mapped the chair out to be in. He spent about 15 minutes. He managed to get into the legs of the chair and then couldn't get back out. And I just thought it was hilarious. I was just watching him for 15 minutes trying to figure out how to get back through this gap in the chairs, to the point where I then just had to lift the chair off him. Then he spent the next 5 minutes going in a circle because he didn't understand where the chair legs had gone, and then figured it out and carried on. And I was literally sat there
interesting. So he couldn't get out of the chair leg?
No, he couldn't get the angle right.
How interesting.
He kept adjusting, but he was adjusting too far every time. He just couldn't get it right. And I don't know if he would have eventually, but I got bored, so I lifted the chair up.
You would think so eventually, because if it's trying every possible angle,
it'll be adjusting very slowly down until it went through.
But there'll be part of his programming. This is when I get stuck. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, can you update the firmware on there?
I have no idea. Probably not.
The programming must get better. They must make improvements to it. It'd be interesting to see how it gets there. Is there an app for the phone?
There is, yes. I don't have the app, but there is an app.
Yeah, probably through that. I'm assuming Chris does.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, talking of Chris and Charlotte, Charlotte was listening to last week's podcast while she was riding.
I saw.
And she said to me, "Why have Chris and I not got names?" Because we haven't thought of one. We did ask our audience for names of Chris. He has to be the duck whisperer.
You know he does.
Maybe we should have the duck whisperer and the horse whisperer.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll do that in future.
We'll do that. Duck whisperer. He'll love that.
Yeah, I was out yesterday and having a cup of tea in a little cafe. And there was a river by the side and there was a lot of ducks there. And I thought, Chris would have liked this. And then there was a goose fight, which was interesting.
Oh, I don't think I've seen a goose fight before.
They're very nippy with their beaks.
I bet.
Very, quite
snappy,
stretchy, necky, and gibbering at one another. So, Lippy, have you got a top tip that's new that hasn't been recycled from a year ago?
I think it's new.
Well, let's see.
It's something I thought of today because we've been having Wi-Fi issues.
Haven't you just?
Haven't I just?
Just to give the listeners a little flavour of the problems we've had over the last few weeks, is that we'll start doing this, and you've got a Virgin Media connection.
Yes.
Of something like 500 megabits a second coming into the house. So you can play stuff
ridiculous
to your heart's content, absolutely fine. Now, we've got 100 megabit cable here, and we get about 90 to this computer, 95 down and about 96 up, or something like that. So you're getting 500 and something down and 0.83 up. So what happens is we'll start this, and after a couple of minutes you'll freeze, and I'll be going, can you hear me? And there'll be nothing. And then you'll say, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? And then nothing. So we then have a WhatsApp conversation about what's going on. Then you drop off. You connect to your hotspot on your phone. So you have to do this over 4G. And then Wife Grumpy calls you. So uses the phone. Ruins it. So you go black. So then we have to spend 10 minutes waiting for yours to come back on again. So it has been a right pain in the posterior.
It really has.
Anyway, please carry on.
So it's been a pain. It's been about at least 2 months, I would say.
I would say so, yeah.
And when the first time the issue occurred, I unfortunately, the only thing I didn't have control over when we moved into the house was the Wi-Fi. Duck Whisperer dealt with all of that.
Well done.
And he's on the contract, so I can call them and talk to them, but they won't do anything because my name's not on the contract. So I will be taking over once it's time for renewal because I could not deal with the lack of contact that was made.
Yes.
So I brought it up to Duck Whisperer. Do you mind just letting them know, like seeing if there's wrong or if there's something with our Wi-Fi or blah-de-blah. A few weeks went past, still having the issues. Was having the interviews for my job where it was very obvious that the Teams calls weren't working very well.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it again. Oh, there's nothing they can do, but fine. Okay, fine. There's more weeks gone past. I think the last 3 weeks we've had the same exact conversation of they can't do anything. They definitely won't be able to do anything. And me going, well, where's the harm in just asking? Flag the issues just so they know there's an issue, and then if there isn't anything they can do, then there's nothing they can do. And I think last week you found issues from other Virgin customers where their upload speeds were an issue, and it was a thing that Virgin's upload speeds weren't as good as their download speeds. So I showed that to him and was like, look, it's an issue with other people, so it's an issue they're aware of, so they must have a fix for it. Went through another week. Had the same conversation again today. Can you just do it? Like, just do it. Just message them. There's no harm in it. There's nothing they can do, blah, blah, blah. And then, so he went on the app and did on the app, you can do a test and it tests your Wi-Fi and stuff for you.
Broadband speed.
Yeah. And the test came back fine and saying it was all fine. And then Chris clicked through to log an issue. But it went in a loop. It basically wasn't working very well. So we came to the conclusion, fine, this weekend he'll call them and have a chat with them and just see if there's anything to do. He got an email this afternoon after he had done all the tests saying, we know there's an issue with your Wi-Fi and we're doing the best we can now to fix it.
Can I just point out that Wi-Fi is not the same as the broadband connection?
Well, they're fixing it. It's broken. They know it's broken. Now they're aware that it's broken. They're now looking about fixing it.
There must be published speeds for upload and download. And they can't possibly have an upload speed of less than 1 megabit a second.
No.
When we had copper ADSL to the house, it was better than that. And that wasn't particularly fast.
Madness.
It is absolutely madness. Well, I think with all these things, you have to persevere.
Yes. But the annoying thing is, it's not having to persevere with Virgin.
True.
As soon as Virgin have been aware, they've emailed us. They've given us £5 off our bill each month until it's fixed.
Brilliant.
Which is great. It wasn't Virgin that was the issue. Well, it was.
No.
But the Duck Whisperer, I did get a message through saying, okay, you can be smug now.
Excellent.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
As if you needed any help in...
Any reason to gloat that I was right.
Oh. I think at this point it's worth giving a shout out to the cable internet provider we have in the village called Box Broadband. It's very difficult to say. And we had real problems getting it into the house because of connecting the road. And it was right at the beginning of COVID. And they were trying to connect our road and the next road. And this wasn't happening at all. And then COVID came along and all the rest of it. So I think at the beginning of last year, they physically connected the house to the road, but couldn't go any further. And I had a phone call just before Christmas saying, "Are you still interested?" Absolutely, we are. We've got all the kit here. We're ready to go, basically. And so they said, "Oh, well, we can connect you in the new year," which they did. And yes, it's a good price. It's a little bit more than we were paying before, but for much faster speed. But I thought we'd get a static IP address. I thought that was the agreement. So because I need it to do some work, and the IP address kept changing. So I emailed the office and said, "Is this included? If not, how much more is it?" Went downstairs, made a cup of tea, came back up again. The email saying fixed.
Mad.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's great having, I always like small companies like that because you get to talk to the people that can actually fix it rather than go through a call centre.
Yeah.
And this one's even better because it's just up the road, so I can go and bang on their door if necessary. But apart from that one thing, I've not had a problem whatsoever. So,
do they want to come and do mine?
Possibly. They have had a lot of trouble in the village with getting into streets and thinking it's going to be easier than it's actually turned out to be. In fact, they started by doing another village just down the road that had really poor ADSL connections. The good thing about this is their activity in this village has made BT up their game considerably.
Yeah, I bet.
So there's friends of mine who he would get up at 6 a.m. to do some work. He's one of the lions because after 8 o'clock the speed was just so slow, he couldn't do anything. Which is ridiculous, and BT just weren't interested at all. And then all of a sudden they're putting in boxes at that end of the village because they're losing customers.
Yeah.
Because quite cleverly, Box have gone, "Oh, we'll go and do these areas first."
Yeah, we'll do the ones where the issues are for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a fun fact. It's a wedding-related one this week.
Ooh.
And it's about the word honeymoon. And it comes from an early medieval practice in Europe where a month's supply of mead, an alcoholic drink made from honey, which was thought to be an aphrodisiac, was given to newlyweds. In other words, 1 moon's worth of honey. The honeymoon.
Honeymoon.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, I did try some mead. We had a party at some friends, and I don't like honey. It's one of the things that I really don't like. It makes me feel quite ill. And I took one mouthful and went, "Oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be like." Yes, so that wouldn't suit me.
No.
That's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.
You can help spread Lippy and Grumpy's view on life by leaving a review on your favourite podcast platform.
If you're not sure how to leave a review, or if you download from Spotify, there's some help at lippyandgrumpy.uk/review.
And if you would like to get in touch, email podcast@lippyandgrumpy.uk.
So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.